Hi, my name's Sarah, and I'd like to welcome you all along to my very new podcast, Drop the Label. I'm joined today by my husband, Ross, who's basically joined me today to chat about labels in general, and probably the fitness industry specifically, since that's where we sort of sit on a day-to-day basis. He's also going to be my support for this. I suppose it's a pilot episode, because this is totally out of my comfort zone. I guess the reason behind this podcast is a pure fascination in people in psychology, but most recently, I suppose, a journey of self-discovery and growth, how I view myself and the various labels that I've accumulated over my 35 years on the planet. The impact, obviously, those labels have had on my personality, my self-confidence, my behaviours, the decisions I've made, everything. So I'm a coach, primarily nutritionist, and co-owner of RT Fitness in Durham and Sunderland, which is home of Team Carnage and the Barbell Club. So on a day-to-day basis, I manage all the financials, the incoming queries, obviously alongside the nutrition info. Due to this role, I get to meet people and talk to people from all walks of life, all day, every day, basically. And often find that the discussions can go to quite a deep level. And that's not just clients neither, that's potential clients or people who might never even join the gym. I'll be on the phone to them anywhere between 5 minutes and 45 minutes, and sometimes I hear life stories. Obviously from listening to all of these different people, I've started to acknowledge the fact that people do label themselves, or they take labels given to them by others. And sometimes it can have quite a significant impact on every element of them, and of their being, of their personality, the decisions they make, the behaviour, how they feel towards themselves. So I find the whole concept of labels fascinating, as you can probably tell. So I suppose to start, I always believed that labels were either positive or negative, but the very definition of a label is primarily negative, which was a bit of a shocker to me, but I suppose I understand it in the fact that as people, we're a lot quicker to dish out a negative label than a positive one. So the actual dictionary definition of a label is a word or phrase that's used to describe somebody or something in a way that seems too general, unfair, or not correct. Or if you'll entertain me for a minute, what I see a label as rolling into the year 2022 is a restrictive, overriding, and inanimate title attached to a person either by themselves or others, which provides people with either 1, a reason to behave within a subset of rules based on said label, 2, to attach oneself to emotionally, to feel or behave a certain way because they're supposed to, because of the label, 3, an excuse for everything, which I'm sure we'll touch on in multiple points, or 4, to bang the drum about something that not everyone's necessarily bothered about. So I guess in some respects this could get controversial, it's likely to get emotional, but I basically want to talk to people about their opinions on labels, what labels they've come across in their lifetime that they've felt they've been affected by in some way. But ultimately, as the title suggests, I want to talk about how we can drop the labels, and drop the labels more specifically that don't serve us as a person. Because I think sometimes we do end up with these limiting beliefs because of the labels that are given to us. So as I said, I'm joined today by Ross. That was my little introduction as to what I'm hoping to achieve with this podcast. So Ross, do you want to tell, obviously I know a lot about you because you're my husband, but do you want to tell everyone else a bit about you?
Ross Thompson, wife to Sarah, husband to Sarah. Co-owner, RT Fitness Durham, RT Fitness Sunderland, home of the Barbell Club and Team Carnage. I'm a coach within it still, coach, head of marketing within it, leader of like the shred element of it, where we take people from the barbell to photo shoot ready. That's the one. Did I say Dad of 3 as well? Dad of 3 boys. 12, 9, and 2. The bane and loves of my lives.
How lovely.
I know.
So, I mean, I've been trying to talk to you all week about this podcast.
And I've been trying to
talk to you about ideas for the podcast. What can we talk about? What would be interesting? What would people find interesting? Obviously, except for the fact of labels itself, which in itself is interesting. And you've swerved it every time because you didn't want to have a preconceived idea as to what it was all going to be about, or to think about it in too much depth.
Yeah, because I think the thing is, coming on something like this with a preconceived of everything, or trying to figure out what I'm going to say, then it'll just come across scripted and not real
Not
on the day.
authentic.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's weird, really, because that's the whole point of a label, isn't it? I know I said to you the other day, I read an article on, I think it was Elon Musk, and the guy who wrote this article said that labels are important. So he basically labelled Elon Musk an entrepreneur, and then there was a few other things about obviously how he presents himself on social media. And he said labels are important because they give people an idea as to what to expect from another person before you've even met them. But isn't that just dangerous?
Especially if it's a negative label.
Which more often than not they are.
Which more often than not we label people, yeah. So I think it's very rare that we actually label people good things unless we know them personally, I think. Yeah.
So what does a label mean to you then? Like what's your take on labels in general?
It depends on which context really, doesn't it? I don't know. A label, it's more of a... if somebody tells you X is, I don't know, or don't go and say them, the terrible. Yeah, so they've already had that terrible name, I don't know, say a barber or something like that. Don't go to there, the terrible at the job. So you've got this preconceived thing of them already being terrible before you've even hit them. So somebody's influencing you before you've actually met this person or know of the person. But generally there is good things as well amongst that. Mm-hmm. Like, and then when you meet these with that preconceived good thing, you feel good about them before you've even met them.
Yeah. Do you find that you battle against I'm going to actually use the word judgment, because I feel like a label is basically society's way of judging someone without using the word judgment. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Like,
it is quite a judgmental thing to put a label to someone, but would you say that you fought against those labels, like in the sense of, if, go back to the barber idea, if someone says, oh, that barber's shit, don't go and say them, they're terrible at the job. Would you then go and see them, would you be more likely to pick up on the things that they were bad at? Or would you sort of in your head try and overcompensate the good?
Then again, it depends who's telling us who the label is, because if I don't like the person who's sending that label, then I'm going to go against them and think they might actually be all right.
So a lot of it's down to interpretation.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Didn't think of it that way. Because if somebody says, the thing is, like, I know it's not people, but movies, I hate it when people are saying, it's a brilliant movie or a brilliant show, you've got to watch it. And it's like, don't tell us that, because I don't want that thing of getting excited for something and then for it to be shit. Or movies, like, I hate people telling us about it or their views on it, because it's always their own view rather than letting me make my mind up about it.
I suppose that's how people view labels as well, where you're saying it depends on who's told you that. It's got to be an important factor in when you actually get these labels, because obviously we give ourselves labels all the time. Like, I'll sometimes call myself lazy. Now, I know I'm not a lazy person, but I'll say I'm lazy because I love my bed. But
do you?
I do. I love my bed. Ooh, let's get lush.
I didn't know that.
But if someone else, say my mum, call us lazy, I might take it I'd take a lot more offence to it, because it's like, well, how do you, like, you know, it's laziness, but in a different context.
Yeah.
I'd take my mum calling us lazy as, like, she's been a bit mean about it, rather than lazy in my eyes of, I just like a bit of downtime and a little bit chill and a bit snug in my bed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's quite a bit of importance as to where the labels come from, but also your interpretation of them. So obviously we work in the fitness industry.
Which probably uses the label lazy in itself a lot.
Yeah, I can often tell on a call with someone whether or not they're going to sign up at the end of the call based on what they say about themselves throughout. So sometimes they'll say, I'm motivated, or I'm not motivated, or I need help, or I'm lazy, or I'm a pig, I like food.
Yeah.
And sort of you can gauge what's going to happen on the end of the call, because a lot of these people, like, if they reference themselves as lazy, they'll generally not start.
Right.
Because they've got that so deep-rooted, and a decision to actually start in the gym would be going against the grain of the label laziness.
And where do you think they pick that up from?
I think they pick it up from anywhere. I think at the end of the day, labels start from when you're born. We start to interpret actions of our parents from being a baby. We might not understand the words, but then obviously the older we get, the more we start to associate certain words with a certain feeling because of a reaction from our parents or teachers. It's all to do with the body language and the tone of voice used as well. Like, I suppose, like, again, going back to the word lazy, like, teachers will sometimes use it in reports, and they'll say, oh, like, I know such and such is I'll use myself, like, Sarah's a bit lazy with maths. But dependent on, obviously, if I was sitting there and he said that in person, I could probably hear the tone of voice of, he doesn't think I'm lazy, he's trying to sort of egg us on to get better at it. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a backhanded sort of motivation thing. Whereas if he said, she's lazy, and like it was just a flat sort of, there's a certain tone of voice used to it, sort of in disgust sort of, then I'd know that actually he's saying that I don't put any effort in, I'm not trying. Do you know what I mean? It's like a totally different, you can interpret a label based on how someone actually physically says it.
So would you say people in the people who you talk to when they say they're lazy, do those people say it through?
Rarely. There's quite a few people who reference themselves as labels, they label themselves as lazy, and they won't sign up, and I won't hear from them again. Even though starting something would be such a massive fundamental shift. And, you know, like I said, they tell us the life stories, they tell us about these illnesses that they've been discussing with the doctors, and the fact that the doctors have said, look, if you don't start something, you are going to end up with X, Y, and Z, you're going to die young. But that label, they're so attached to it, it's like their identity. Like the whole, every decision they make, everything, and like I can tell it's just from a telephone conversation, and it's quite sad really, because it just promotes such a limiting belief in themselves. Like, they call themselves lazy, and it's holding them back from their potential. But then you get people who call themselves lazy, and I think label sounds too close to lazy, so it keeps coming out of my mouth as label. So people sometimes either just sort of, it'll end up being a habit that they don't do something, and they'll call themselves lazy. And sometimes, like I said, in my definition of what a label is, it's an excuse. And it's sometimes hard to differentiate between the two as to whether or not someone's actually genuinely identifying so much with that label that it is them, or they've been told that they're lazy so often that they just use it as an excuse. Like, I've been told I'm lazy, so I might as well be lazy. Yeah.
Obviously, we see it, we hear it on a day-to-day basis, within the gyms, outside the gyms. Where have you been? Oh, just been lazy. But it is, it's like, where have you been? And it's like, well, like, I've been lazy. Well, what does that mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, well, you've just sat on the couch and just watched Netflix.
But they didn't need to use that word in that situation. They could have actually just said,
yeah,
I've just been sitting watching Netflix.
Like, I chose to do that instead. It was easier. Which it is. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously, if we're on the topic of the fitness industry, people, or within fitness itself, I mean, like, I've thought of loads there. It's like serial dieter.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm a serial dieter.
Gym hopper.
I'm a gym hopper. And it's like they stick to those things and they never get anywhere. And obviously a serial dieter itself, meaning you have done it multiple times, but then even now, even today, like I'll still hear people say, well, I'm a serial dieter. We're like, what do you do? And it's like, well, we count calories and macros like the proper way. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, like I'll try that. Do you know what I mean? But then I mean, we've got a friend who started with us 5 years ago, and ever since he's come back to us a couple of times, but then since then, like he has been on every single diet out there, every gym out there, and is probably now in a worse place. Or do you know what I mean?
It took me a while to figure out who you talked about there, but I know who you talked about now.
Yeah, and like they're like, do you know what I mean? They're in now, even though they've done all of that, even though like they know what to actually do, they're still looking for this thing because they call themselves a serial dieter.
Yeah. So it's not actually that they are a serial dieter, they just identify themselves so much with being that person that they kind of don't know what to be without having that label.
Yeah, and like, and it's not even a surprise when I hear they're on to the next thing, which is bizarre. It's like, yeah, oh, what's he doing now? Oh, he's doing this, and it's like, fucking hell. It's like, again, but they've identified that, and identified them that, and sure, like, said on the bio, like,
yeah,
I am this, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like stuck to that one thing. Like, but they've stuck to that more than they have the fucking diets.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, to be fair, they've been consistent with that label. Mm-hmm. With that, and I mean, another label, is it a label? I'll always be fat. Or I am destined to be fat.
Yeah.
Would you class that as one?
If someone calls themselves fat enough, then yeah.
Yeah.
Because they'll make decisions based on what would a fat person do.
Yeah.
A fat person would eat all that cake or drink all that bottle of whiskey.
But it's like where we've helped, and then they've just turned around and said, I'm destined to be fat. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, they've put that barrier there, and no matter what, even though they know they're fucked up time and time again, but now they just said, I'm destined to be fat. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so they've just sort of give into that realm.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're saying there that people give into it. And I think sometimes it's an unfair assumption to make, because I think sometimes it's so heavily ingrained in a person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we realise how much things that happen in our childhood affect us now. Like, even just from talking about doing this podcast, obviously I've been reading into things and reading a book on labels. And in my head, it was like, what do I say to the kids? Like, what words do I say to the kids that could potentially fuck them up in later life because because I've said it to them.
Yeah.
And because I'm an important person in their lives, and we do tend to take on board labels more so from people who we think highly of.
Yeah.
Like, we put people, the higher on a pedestal we put someone, or the more we love someone,
yeah,
the more we take to heart and the more we onboard that label and really cling onto it. So I'm thinking, like, what I say to the boys, like, shit, I can't say that. Like, oh, get out of bed, you lazy little shit.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be careful how you say these things, because it could literally go so far into their later life and into their adulthood and affect the decisions that they make and affect the person that they then become. Because they do, they love us so much.
Yeah,
and we've used certain words with them. So I think sometimes, like, obviously going back to, like, when you say people give up and they just sort of resign themselves to, I'll always be fat. It's identifying where it is very deep-rooted and sort of, it's our job as coaches, and I'm using the word coach rather than personal trainer, which I'm going to move on to try and help them through that and try and help them get past that label, try and get them to see that it doesn't mean anything, it's just a word. It's just a word that's been given to them, and help them chip away at that pedestal to sort of bring someone down to their level so they can say, actually, do you know what? Fuck that. I'm not that person. That label doesn't apply to me. I'm going to go on and do what I need to do and what I want to do. Because at the end of the day, all the people who we see here in this gym, they don't want to be overweight anymore. They don't want the fat label.
Yeah.
They don't want to be unhealthy. They don't want all of these things. And it's up to us to help them break down those barriers and identify where the labels have come from so that they can sort of process past it.
So what other labels do you hear? We'll stick on fitness.
Wait, hang on, because I was already going to talk about personal training.
Oh, right. Go for it.
This is me talking to you.
No, I'm just interested in the labels, obviously, what you hear on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so we'll come back to personal training then.
Well, no, go for it. It doesn't matter.
You know, so the labels I hear on a day-to-day basis are fat, unhealthy, alcoholic. That's a biggie. That's a very big one, that one.
Is it rare that they actually say that, or do they call themselves a wino more than a...
To be fair, the word very rarely comes out of the mouth.
Uh-huh.
But when it does, it sort of feels like it's a bit of a sledgehammer to them.
Yeah.
But you can tell by the sort of things that they say that's what they're getting at.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of those labels that people tend to avoid as much as possible because they don't want to sort of accept it or move forward from it. Well, not that they don't want to move forward from it, but it's quite a hard one to hear, really. Anxiety. I'm an anxious person. I'm a depressed person.
But they use that.
Have you noticed how they're all negative, though?
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, do you ever get people ringing you up saying, I'm a super motivated, positive person, I'm ready to take on the world, what do I do?
Not so much in that respect, but I tell you what I do get. I do get people who say, I used to be super motivated, I used to be a gym bunny, I used to do X, Y, and Z, and some things happened, and I want to get that back. I want to get that back in my life. I want to feel like that again.
Then do they use the, now I'm a lazy fat person?
Not always. Sometimes. Normally it's, do you know what it is? Normally it's quite sort of serious life events that's totally taken them off course. Like whether they're grieving for someone or they've they've been in a failed relationship or they've suffered domestic abuse in some cases. There used to be all of these different things, and then someone or something has happened or said something to them, and it's just knocked them back, and they've started to be a different way, and they've kind of let these new labels sink in and take a hold and sort of getting in touch and starting something like this to get themselves back. If you noticed how people always say, like, I want to find myself again, I say it all the time, like, since having Castor, I want to find myself. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going through a journey of rediscovering who I am without what I was prior to having him. At the same time, not wanting to just be a mum. I'm sure I'll touch on this with some of our guests.
Yeah,
in the future.
Some of the mums.
Yeah, some of the mums, because that's a huge one. Like I think that's a society expectation as well. Once you're a mum, you've got to be a certain way. And it's like, nah, bullshit. You don't have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
But anyway, by the by. Yeah, so these people want to rediscover who they were prior to whatever life-changing events happened that's made them sort of hold on to another label, a new label that they don't necessarily like, a more negative label.
So what would you, I don't know, like how would you change that then?
In what sense?
Would you attach a new label to it, or would you just try and get rid of the old label?
Me personally?
Like for these people, obviously there's these people who, because obviously we're in fitness and I can talk about the fitness a little bit more with you, but it's like these people who say phone you up and attaching these negative labels to them, how then do you think they should go about and like is it better to attach a new label to them, like say I mean, like I've wrote before, like in the groups and that, be that person who hits 10,000 steps per day. Be that person who turns up 3 times a week. Be that person who always tracks the food. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to change their identity in identifying themselves with, I am a person who will always hit my steps, like in a higher self. Would you say, like, to those people who are always attaching these negative labels, do they now have to attach, like, say, a new label to themselves to get out that funk?
I think it depends how deep-rooted the labels are. I mean, obviously you've hit on when you post in the group saying, be that person who does X, be that person who does Y. It's often about implementing new, more positive habits.
It's like, habits.
And making choices. And I think, ultimately, when you take a label on board, a label, depending on when it comes into your life, becomes a habit.
Oh, big time.
So because of the fact that it then comes a habit, yes, in theory, you could overcome some of the negativity by putting in place more positive habits, by using more positive labels with yourself. But I think it's such an individual thing because it depends how deep-rooted that label is. I mean, if you've been told something as a kid and you've latched onto that, and every behaviour and every decision that you've made since being a child has come down to this one person really high up on a pedestal saying this one thing to you, that's going to be really hard to overcome just by using positive language. So I think it depends on the person. I think if someone's really struggling with a negative label, they've got to really sit and unpick where they're at. They've got to try and think back to points in their life and think, when did I start seeing myself as this person? When did I let this take over my life? When did I start letting this label, this word, be the be-all and end-all of everything that I am and everything that I want to be? Like, I want to be, I don't know, they might have some massive goal in their life, but they haven't even tried because they'll always in the head just be X. They've got to go back to that point and think, do you know what? I need to unpick it and I need to get rid of it from back then rather than try and mask it with positive labels.
But then is it about finding out what your label is itself? Because some people might be saying it like, I'll always be this, or I like lazy, whatever, like from the start. And then do they have to then it's like a sort of a realization of like, shit, I call myself that all the time. Like, no more. Yeah,
I mean, obviously it's quite a high level of self-realization if you realize that you're calling yourself something and then you start thinking about and think, shit, the decisions I make are based on that one label. I think you've got to be in quite a sort of self-perceptive phase of your life to be able to reflect on it and really move forwards from it. And I think it takes you to a point in your life to sort of accept and to sort of look back on yourself. I mean, I wouldn't have these thoughts. I wouldn't think about labels when I was in my early 20s.
It was mad. Do you know it is mad yesterday? Because did you say share that Jimmy Carr thing? Be happy, be lucky.
Yeah.
So on his, did you watch the video itself?
I seen it ages ago.
Oh, did you? It was the first time I seen it, and I watched it, and he was like, they asked him if you're happy, and he's like, good question. So with that Jimmy Carr thing, when I seen it, like someone asked him if he was happy, and he was like, good question. He says, but yes, I am happy. But then, like he said about being lucky, but then that made us think about obviously the label where people always say, I'm unlucky. I'm always unlucky. I'm so unlucky. I'm so, like loads of people use that one. I'm so unlucky, but that in itself, be lucky. Imagine if you change that around. I'm always lucky. I am lucky. Like most of us are lucky. That's the thing. But it's like, because people are unlucky because, I don't know, they fucking smash an egg or whatever. I'm always unlucky. I smash a glass or I trip over or whatever. And they always call themselves unlucky, but then that ends up leading to, like, say, starting a business. Oh, I'll never be able to do that. I'm proper unlucky. Do you know what I mean? In all these little bits. But then, imagine if you just switched that around and labelled yourself lucky.
Yeah.
Because we are. At the end of the day, we're all lucky. I mean, we've all got everything we want, really. We've all got running water. We've got food. Do you know what I mean? We don't have to hunt for our food. We've got everything. We've got warmth. Yes, the bills might be up, but so what? do you know what I mean?
You can't say so what. It's killing some people off.
Yeah, but still, we're still lucky. We've still got a roof over our head.
We've got everything in abundance. We've got opportunity in abundance. There's so much opportunity out there to overcome things, but
people might have a string of bad luck. Like, people might be totally healthy and have a string of unlucky health problems. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't mean to say they're unlucky. But when people are using that phrase in itself, do you know what I mean? Then there always will be.
Yeah.
Because everything, then whatever goes bad in their life, they'll blame it on the unluckiness.
Yeah.
But if you went around saying, I'm lucky for everything, which I'm probably going to do from now on, like, you'd live a much better life, because then you're labeling yourself lucky. I'll do that, I'm lucky. I'll give that a go, I'm lucky. I mean, some things are probably a bit stupid to do, like I can run and jump over those buildings or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Yes. You don't want to believe yourself that much. But you know what I mean?
I think it becomes a bit of an addiction to some people to be a certain way as well.
Especially on the negative.
People become addicted to feeling a certain way. And it is, sometimes if they do change the language, it can sort of change the signals in the brain as well to sort of say, look, like, actually, this is where you want to get your hit from. So if you replace a negative with a positive enough, it can change how your brain functions to say, right, this more positive thing is where you're getting your hit. So then you go and chase that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you don't like the phrase, you don't like the label personal trainer. You would never identify yourself as a personal trainer, would you?
Originally, yes. Because when I first started, it was Ross Thompson Personal Training.
Right. So why have you changed that then?
I think over the years, because, I don't know, someone said it was years ago, personal training is just like hiring a friend.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Who you get to talk to 3 times a week. And what I find is and now I've associated that label with that. Do you know what I mean? But where I like the phrase coach is because you're not just coaching them through a session, you're coaching them through a lot more than that, because coaching, personal training, isn't just for them to show up to the session, you take them through a session, take the money and then leave. Do you know what I mean? If you're actually coaching someone, you have to coach them in and out of the gym. I mean, yeah, you've got to put up with a lot of shit, and yeah, a lot of people just dump you at the drop of the hat. But as long as you're there for them at all times, coaching in and out the gym, because you know yourself, it is more than, like you've just said there, people release a lot of stuff onto you, and then you're trying to coach them through it just to try and get them through the door, just for them to like make a realization of like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think like, oh, right, I've paid me money, personal training, I'll turn up once a week, get me PT, and I'll have fucking 6 packs in 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? People automatically think that, but like as a coach, you've got to take, if they want to get to there, and anyway, 6 pack, but the emotional drama and roller coaster of a ride, what you've got to go through, you've got to physically coach them through, not personally train them on a one-to-one basis. Yeah.
Because I think as a coach, it's not, I mean, even when someone joins your gym and they say they want a 6-pack, it's always far beyond that. There's very few people who start a gym just to get a 6-pack.
Yeah.
There's always something else, some sort of higher desire in them to want to be more confident, to look better in clothes, to be more attractive to the opposite sex, to be confident enough in their own skin to go and get a better job because they fucking hate the job that they're in, to overcome a lot of this self-doubt and negativity that they've had in their lives, that they've just believed for so long. I think that's why I like the phrase coach rather than personal trainer, because it is so much more on so many. It's a deeper level, and I mean, yes, some PTs are very base level, and at the end of the day, you know, some people just want that. You know, they don't want much more than that. But a lot of the people who come in here, through conversations I have with them alone, relationships that they've got with food, the relationships that they've got at home, the relationships that they're putting onto their kids because they're overweight and they don't want the kids to be overweight. It's a lot deeper than just putting someone through a gym session.
Yeah. Do you see them as what do you see the two labels as then? Personal trainer, coach? Positives, negatives?
So I would say both as positive, really.
Mm-hmm.
But to me personally, if someone called me a personal trainer, I'd take it as I would take offence to it because I feel like I'm so much more than I give so much of myself to try and help other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, if someone just flat labelled me, oh, she's just a PT, it'd be like, do you know what I give? and it's not even from a point of it's not like I want people to know how much I give to others or anything like that. It's not about that, but I want to be able to help people on such a deep level. Like it's in me. I suppose in me personality, I want to help people. I suppose that's a label I've given myself, maybe, but yeah. So I would take I just put the people through a gym session. It'd be like, no.
What would that be? Like just an exercise class person? They say there's me just.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
It's so hard. It's so hard actually not label or judge, really. I think we all do it. It's a natural thing.
But personally, I prefer coach.
Why do you prefer coach?
Because I see it's about like the personal trainer thing where it was like just hiring a friend, personal trainer, because it's a personal. Obviously, you're getting like generally one-to-one and trainer, like they train you through a session. It's like a lot of, the thing is, whenever people are talking to us and they get, you get the one-to-one coaching with you every week. Obviously you get the X amount of sessions, like fully coached sessions as well. But then when I hear of like, I had a personal trainer, but then he was wanting to charge us like another 200 quid just for some meal plan on top. And I was like, what, you're spending 3 times a week with him and he's not helping you with your nutrition? No. And it's like, we get those people coming to us, obviously can't believe the what we give for them. And I mean, even our coaches like know the value within our program, like, because, I mean, God, online people, what you give within the program charge more than us a month for the coach sessions.
Mm-hmm. But it's mad that though, because just from you saying that, from an interpretation perspective, right? I've interpreted what you said totally different to how I think you have, because you've said it's a friend who coaches you 3 times a week.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice thing. If you think about it, because...
Yeah, not if you don't get on.
Yeah, but to actually use the phrase that your personal trainer is like hiring a friend 3 hours a week or whatever.
I mean, some people need
friend.
That. Yeah. Yes, but then again, if you're hiring a friend for 3 times a week, wouldn't you want them to help you outside of those 3 hours? Because if they don't give a toss about your outside, don't give a toss about what you're eating or anything like that, then you're not really friends, are you? That's the thing. And it's like, if they're just happy, like, yeah, your next block's done, let's pay it in, like they're not measuring you in or anything like that to make sure you're on track, or asking you how's the diet, if they're not giving you stuff, nutrition, then what, like, how can they ever ask that?
Yeah.
But they don't. Right, session time, that's it, let's absolutely destroy you in the session, hope for the best. And that's how I see that label as a personal trainer. I mean, don't get us wrong, there's some great personal trainers out there who do put all of the stuff inside, but then again, I would call them a coach.
But they call themselves a personal trainer.
Yeah.
So again.
But that's my interpretation of it, isn't it? It's not the actual definitive. I think personal trainer obviously was first. Mm-hmm. Personal trainer used to be something special years ago.
Yeah.
Like before I even started, it was only for upper people, really, in a way.
Who had the money to do it.
Who had the money to do it. But nowadays, where you can get a 6-week PT course and become a PT in 6 weeks straight out of school and call yourself a PT, I think the name in itself is like devalued, especially when they're charging less than minimum wages for it.
Yeah.
But then again, that's probably why it comes down to, they're just basing them in that hour so they can get the next person in. And then they now the personal trainer is that lower level thing, and the coaches are the ones above tier.
Yeah. I think a lot of people probably start out thinking that they're a certain thing, and then gradually over time that changes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even our coach, he used to always use the phrase business coach. It was always business coach.
Uh-huh. What does he use now?
And now I feel like the more he talks now, it does end up being more just coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's because over the time, I think when we started with him, it was very much business.
Yeah.
And then it gradually sort of morphed into more mindset, and then it's just grown and grown and grown, and it is probably more mindset than anything else now. So he sort of kind of dropped business coach. I mean, it'd be interesting to talk to him about it, like.
Yeah, but I don't, do you know what it is though? And do you know what I don't like though? What phrase I don't like? Life coach.
Why?
Because I think they're a bit fucking wishy-washy.
All right.
Because if somebody's calling somebody a life coach, what, I'm gonna tell you how to live your life. Do you know what I mean? I get a coach, maybe it's a mindset coach, like more of a specific thing. But when people call themselves a life coach, and generally it's like their life might not even be that great themselves, but then trying to coach other people about how to live their life.
But you not find that coaches in general, their life might not be perfect, but they're learning themselves and applying some things that they're learning themselves, and then they're passing them on to other people.
Yeah, but nobody's perfect.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, but even us as coaches, we're definitely not perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, we do whatever we tell people to do, we follow it ourselves. Like, we follow the programs what we coach people on. We follow the nutrition guidance on what we set out for people. Do you know what I mean? And we do fuck up on diets. We do eat what we like in whatever, but we tell them that. Do you know what I mean? But if their goal is X, we tell them, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like as a coach as well, like we jumped on when we did our first shred, we jumped in, we got involved. Do you know what I mean? To show them that it can be done, rather than just saying, yeah, you do that. Go over there, do that.
Yeah, it was quite evident who followed instruction better than the other, though. Since me mum labelled took over 2 weeks prior when my child was poorly, so I fucked up my last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, you followed instruction a lot better than me.
Yeah, that's it. Like the coach personal trainer thing. Like that's my views on those labels, really.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think probably that's a good point to sort of wrap up.
Okay.
Thank you very much for being me pilot.
No problem. Thank you very much.
And for forcing us into doing this.
It's all right.
Yeah, so next week we have Caroline. So I know we'll end up talking most likely about being a business owner, about being a mum, and I'm sure Caroline's got some other labels. Wedding. Our wedding's not a label though. Wedding ready.
Wedding ready.
No, bridezilla.
Bridezilla.
Yeah. So we'll have a good chat next week with Caroline. I hope everyone's enjoyed the pilot. Any feedback would be much appreciated. Check us back next week and see what you think.